They say time is money, and here in Yorkshire, we're not big fans of spending money. So anything we can do to make life easier, well, we're all over it like a whippet after a squirrel. In this video, we're going to use some chuffing brilliant tools to build a limitless product review content engine for his website, all without having to lift a finger and done in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. We're going to use Make.com, Browse AI, Airtable and Slack, and these are all free tools that will help us keep the padlock on us wallets. So, without any more faffing about, here's how it works. First, we're going to scrape a list of new products from the There's an AI for That website using Browse AI. Then we're going to ping all the data into a custom scenario in Make.com, and then we're going to send all the data to Slack for manual approval. If the product is approved, then Slack sends the data back to a second Make scenario, which will then scrape summary information and the product website from the dedicated product page on There's an AI for That. We'll then use this to create a nice review of the product's features and benefits and take a screenshot of its homepage. And finally, we're going to create and publish the review into a WordPress site. Blooming brilliant. This is going to save tons of time. And bear in mind, this is just one use case for these tools, and you can adapt it however you like. So let's see how it works under the hood, and you can follow along and build it yourself. I'm really excited to show you this workflow. I think you're going to really enjoy it, and there's so much you can do with it. If you don't already have an account, you can just click the Get Started for Free button, or if you really want to support the channel, please use the affiliate link in the description of this video. So first of all, we're going to click on Extract Structured Data. And what we're going to do is we're going to enter the website address of the site that we want to go to. In this case, I'm going to use the brilliant There's an AI for that.com, because what I want to do is extract all the latest AI tools that are coming out and being listed on that site and write a review about them. If the website needs logging in, you can do that, and you can use the session cookies or log in with your password. For this particular site, you don't necessarily need to log in, but I'm going to do that. Now, the first time that you do this, you'll need to install an extension into your browser, so let's do that. You just click on the button, click Add to Browser. In this case, I'm using Brave Browser. And then you'll need to allow the extension to record your actions whilst you're training your robot. So just click Grant Permission and Allow. Okay, that's it done. You can now start training your robot. So let's do that. And the website that you're trying to train it on will now pop up. So just click OK, understood. First thing that you want to do is click on this funky little robot in the top right hand corner and just click. And click Capture List. So now what we're going to do is we're going to find one of the elements that we actually want to capture. Now I want to capture all of the newly launched tools that have gone on this website. So what I'm going to do is bring my cursor down here and just hover for a moment, and what you'll see is all of the individual list items are going to be highlighted. So you want to make sure that it's actually highlighting all of the elements in that list, and then just click. Okay, now what you're going to get is it's going to allow you to select the individual elements. First of all, we're going to select the name of each product. So just make sure that you hover around it so you've got the names highlighted and click. And then we're going to capture the URL link of the product. So I'm just going to move slightly to the side and click again. And it will give you the option to capture the link here. So we'll capture that. I'm then going to get the category that the product is in. So that's these here. I'm just going to click on that. And I'm going to choose Capture the Visible Text. That's the category bit. I'm going to capture the pricing information. So click and capture the visible text. And I'm also going to capture this logo URL here. So click on that and capture the image URL. Once you are done with that, you just click the Enter button to finish. The next thing it's going to ask you to do is to name each element. So the first one that I did, that it's asking me to name, is the product name. So I'm just going to call this product name. The The next one is the link. I'm just going to call it URL. The next one is the category, so I'll call it category. The next one is the pricing, so I shall just call it pricing. And the final one is the logo URL, so let's just call that logo URL. And OK that. Now it's going to show you a list of all of them that it's captured. Now we're just going to start with the maximum number of rows that we want to extract being 10. And you need to give the list a name. In this case, I'm going to call it Captured AI Products. And then you can choose a pagination type if you want. It's not really necessary for when we're just capturing 10 on this site. So then I'm going to click Capture the List. OK, and then finally click Finish Recording. So you can now give your robot a name. I'm just going to call it Extract Data from There's an AI for that. So I'll get rid of all the rest of it and click Save. OK, so the robot is now running on a server. So it's going to take just a moment, and then we're going to have a nice list of this. Just check through it, just make sure it's what you want. Obviously, we've got the position in the list, we've got the product name, we've got its URL, we've got its category, its pricing information, and the logo URL. So that's absolutely brilliant. So we're going to just finally scroll down to the bottom and just click Finish Setup. Okay, so we've created our robot. The next thing that we're going to do is integrate it with make.com. I've already created a couple of scenarios, and the reason that I've done this is that I actually want to send the products to my Slack so that I can approve whether I want them to be reviewed or not before we actually go through that entire process. Happily, Make does provide a Browse AI module for us. What we're going to need to do is to integrate, first of all, with our account. So click on the integrate button, and we're going to create a webhook. So the webhook URL is down here. I previously created a connection and webhooks before, but I'm going to show you how to create a new webhook on here. So just click on that. Obviously, the first time that you do this, you're going to need to create a connection as well. But what we're going to do is here we're going to create a brand new webhook. So let's just click Add. We're going to call this webhook Pull Data from There's an AI for That website. Okay, and we're going to then choose the correct connection. So that's this one for me. And then you'll be able to click and select the robot that you want to use. So I'm going to use this one here, and the event is going to be the task finished successfully. So I'm going to save that, and then we're going to click show the address, and we're going to copy that address to the clipboard. Go back to our Browse AI, and we're going to enter that into the endpoint URL. I'm going to select task is finished successfully, so this is when it's going to ping the data there. Great. We've got two scenarios, one which happens prior to approval and one which happens after approval. So let's take a look at step one. Okay, so let's have a look at the modules. This is the Browse AI module. Obviously, we've seen this being set up already. The information is going to be pulled into the iterator, which is going to iterate through the captured lists which are being sent via Browse. Okay, so each iteration, we're just going to pass it first of all through a little filter just to make sure that the status that comes back from each of the products sent from Browse is a new one, so it's added. Then we're going to use a text parser, and what this is going to do is it's going to do a regex pattern to strip out any query links on the end of the product URL page, which is coming obviously from Browse AI. Then we're going to search in our Airtable to see if the product already exists in the tool name record. At the moment this is empty, so that's all good. But if it did find the tool, then it would output the name, and that would actually stop the automation scenario here, because we're going to do a check to make sure the number of bundles output from this search is 0. That makes sure that we know that this tool has not been placed into our database already. Next, I want to be able to send this particular tool to my Slack for manual approval. So what I'm going to do is I've set up a connection and created a new Slack app bot. It's going to post into this public channel AI reviews here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Slack's blocks kit builder to actually send the data. So let's take a look at how that works. So once you're logged in, you're going to see these example blocks. As you can see, what's been sent to Slack here is this nice way of laying things out, and it creates all of the code for you. But what we're going to do is we're going to create our own. So for now, I'm just going to clear the blocks, and we're going to start by building our own blocks. So the first thing I want to do is just send a little bit of plain text into it. So I'm just going to send a plain text box, and what you can see is it's already built the code for you. All I want to do here is just change this text here, and we're just going to put, here's an AI for review. Next, just for the heck of it, I'm going to throw an emoji into here. Click on the plus button. I don't want those emojis, they're terrible. Let's just get rid of those ones. And I'm just going to put eyes. Next, I want to have some bold text, and that's going to be the product name. So I'm just going to click Rich Text Bold, and as you can see, it brings everything up for me. All I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to get rid of this first part here because I only want it to be on one line, and I'm going to change this text in here. I'm just going to put the placeholder for now called product name. Okay, after this, I want to pass the actual category that we're going to use. So I'm going to just click Markdown, and for this section here, we're just going to change this text here. I'm going to get rid of the entire link, and we're just going to make this into category, and we'll just put the enter category here. Okay. And then after this, I want a URL in there. So I'm going to click the Markdown again, and we're going to change this text, and we'll just put enter URL here. Okay, so next I want to have a couple of buttons. So I'm going to scroll down to Actions, and I'm going to click Button. And we're going to change the text that's displayed on the button from click me to approve. And we're going to change the value of this button to approve. And we're going to change the action ID to button_1. Now, I'm actually going to create another button as well because I want to have a reject button. Now, what you can do here is you can actually just grab all of this element and copy it, and then just put a little comma at the end here and a new line, and then just create another button, and this time we're going to call this one button 2. And what you'll do is you'll see that it's been duplicated, but I want this to be our reject button, so let's change that to reject, and we're going to change the value to reject. Now, I actually want to make one of these buttons, this approve one here, I want it to stand out a little bit. So I actually want to change the style of it slightly. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put a little comma, a new line, and then I'm going to add style, and I'm going to put primary. And watch what happens now. It's going to make that button green, which is going to look really good when it shows up on my Slack, which has a nice dark grey background. And that's how we're going to send our data to our Slack. So now all I need to do is to click copy the payload. So now when we come back to our Slack module here, all we're going to do is we're going to take our copied payload and we're just going to paste it into blocks here. Okay, so there's one last thing I need to do now. I need to change my placeholders and pass in the actual dynamic data. So we have, if you remember, the first section that we need to change is this product name here. So I'm just going to highlight product name. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to pass in the product name that comes from the iterator. So product name. I'm going to scroll down a bit more and find the category bit. I'm going to remove the enter category here text and enter the category from the iterator. And finally the enter URL here one, because I want to pass that in too. So I shall enter that from the iterator and then save that. And then finally we're going to make one last save to our Airtable of all of this information here. We're going to save into it the product name into the tool name column, the category into the category column, the URL, the pricing, the logo URL, and of course the Slack message timestamp. This is so important because this is what's going to tie up the message that we're sending and make sure we know which one we're using in our next step. We're going to set the approval to no response, and the scrape is going to be set as not started. And we're going to set complete as no. And that's it. Once you've done all that, you can save everything, and we're ready to run this part. Okay, so let's run the task. I'm going to capture 5 products from, there's an AI for that. I'm going to run the task. So it'll just take a moment, it'll add it to the queue, and then it'll spin up a new server, and then once it's done that, it will start to send the data through, and we should actually see it pinging through here in just a second. Okay, it's getting the data, it's sending it through, and look, here we go, we're getting our apps into here. Now, great. So you should also be able to see that in the Airtable it's saved this information. So here's what we've got: the tool name, category, product URL, pricing, logo URL, the Slack message timestamp, and we've got approval set as no response because we haven't clicked a button yet, and the scrape hasn't started yet. So now once we press either the approve or reject button, all of these other things are going to start to happen in scenario 2. So let's just first of all take a quick look at our Slack. Here's what we sent. Remember that we use the blocks code to create this. We've got here's an AI for review. We've got our googly eyes. We've got the name of the product. We've got the category, the URL, a bit of text, and here's our 2 approve and reject buttons. And obviously it's unfurled the URL and given a little bit of a summary as well, which is brilliant. So that's worked perfectly. So let's now take a look at what happens when we click either the approve or the reject button. So let's have a look at step 2. So once we've clicked our accept or reject button, that data is going to be sent via a webhook to our second scenario. So here's our webhook. There's the hook's URL. It's just going to receive the data. And what's going to happen is there's a JSON module next, which is going to take the payload of the webhook and it's going to output it into some really nice JSON. Now, let's just take a look at the structure of this, because the only thing that we want required is the message TS. That's the message timestamp coming back from Slack. It's really important that we get that, because that's the way that we're going to be able to tie up the product that we've clicked the button of in Slack with the product that's in our Airtable. And then obviously we know that we've got 2 buttons. We've got our approve and our reject button. So we have a router here, and whichever button was pressed, it determines which route it's going to go down. So let's start with rejected. If the reject button is pressed, and you can see that there is a filter here, we're taking from the payload the action value, and if the value of the button is reject, then it's going down here. And we're going to first of all search for the specific record which has the actual message TS which we pulled in the Slack message TS column in our Airtable, which you can see here. So each one of these there are its unique Slack message TSs. So when it finds that record, it's going to output all of these fields. And then we're just going to make sure that it's got this filter on here to make sure that the scrape is still set to not started. The reason for that is if we've pressed the approve button and then we accidentally press the reject button, we don't want it to be updated if that has taken place. Similarly, if we've pressed reject twice and it's been stored in the database already, it would throw an error. So we've got this error handler ignore here. But assuming it's the first time you've pressed reject, it's simply going to update the record and it's going to update the approval field just with the selection rejected. This is a single select here in Airtable. Now, that's what happens if it's rejected. So what happens if it's accepted? Well, if it's accepted, it goes through this route. Again, we're checking to make sure that only the approve button has been clicked. And assuming it has, we're now going to do the same again. We're going to get the record, but this time we're going to add a little bit to our Airtable formula. We're still going to get it by the Slack message TS, but this time we're just going to make sure that the approval is selected as no response and the scrape is selected as not started, as they are here, because if we'd already started them and then we accidentally press the button, we don't want it to go ahead and start doing the same function again. So we're just going to make sure that that's set. Assuming that it is, we're going to go up this route first, and the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to update those two elements. The approval is going to be set to approved and the scrape is going to be set to started. Then what we're going to do is we're actually going to make a HTTP request using the URL of the product that we pull from this search here. So we know that the product URL, which comes from, there's an AI for that. Here's the product URL, how it appears. So let's just take a look at that. So if you were to click that, you'd actually go to the specific product page for this product. Let's do that. And the reason that we're doing this is we want to pull a couple of things. The first thing that we want to pull is this summary data here. And the second thing that we want to pull is the URL which is embedded into this visit website button here. And we want to be storing them into our data table. So we're going to open up the product URL page that we got from our scrape originally, and we're going to open it up and we're just going to dump all of the HTML output, and then what we're going to do is we're going to actually extract those two elements. The first element we're going to extract is the summary information, and I've already checked and made sure that I know where it's coming from. In this case, the summary information is coming inside of the meta name equals description, content equals whatever field in the HTML code. So what this regex is doing here is it's pulling in the text from the download of the HTML, and it's looking through to find this pattern, and then whatever is in there can be absolutely anything at all. It's then going to match that. We only want to match it once, and we do want to make it case sensitive. And then once it gets that, it's going to hold that in its browser memory for a little while. Then we're going to extract the redirect URL, again using this regex pattern here. We know that in the website link button here, this is where the actual URL resides, and this is the ID of that particular element. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for this element with the ID main_AI link. We're going to then pull anything that's inside of the href here, and we're going to store that. Again, remember the text is coming from this HTTP module here. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to sanitize that redirect URL for the simple reason that some of these URLs have query links on them. So let's just take a look at that. If we click on the Eternity one and we click on the visit website, what you'll notice is it's got this query after it. These are generally affiliate links, but they can also be tracking links as well. We want to get rid of those. And the way that we spot them is that we're looking for this question mark here. So what we want to do is we want to capture everything up to that question mark there, and then we want to strip all of that out, and we want to store this into our Airtable. So we're going to sanitize the redirect URL, so we're passing in the information that we got when we extracted the entire redirect URL. That's the one with the query string still attached. And we're going to use this regex pattern here to strip out everything after the question mark. Okay, and we're just going to return everything before the question mark. Then we're going to store the redirect URL and the summary that we've captured from these parsers into our Airtable. So let's just show you how that works. So we're going to, we've got the scrape set as completed now as well because we've done that. We've got the product description, which is going to be extracted from this module here, being stored there. And we've got the sanitized URL, which is being stored as the redirect URL into our table here. Then we are going to actually write our review. So now we've actually got some summary text. We're going to pass that over to OpenAI and we're going to get it to effectively write a much more comprehensive review of the product. So I've got a couple of different elements of the prompt here. I've got a system prompt telling it what it does. I've got a first user prompt, which is the actual prompt, what the task that I want it to achieve, and basically I'm just saying this is what I'm going to give you, this is what you must do, a little bit of extra guidance here. If there's any pricing information, maybe you could use that, otherwise don't mention pricing at all. I've told it there's a few words that I want to avoid. Why? Because there's some words that, oh my gosh, they're just so annoying when you see them in AI written content. I've said that I want to use Markdown for all of the different elements, and I've told it the way that I want the title to be presented. I've told it I don't want URLs in the completion, and I certainly don't want any other explanatory text or summary of the completion. You know, when it says things like, now that I've completed this task, I hope that it will be amazing for you, or something like that. We don't want any of that nonsense. And I've just reiterated you must only output the actual text for review. Then we've got our second user role, and this is pulling the original text from the summary extraction, and we're getting the tool name from the record that we looked up before, and also the pricing information, because we're going to pass that into OpenAI as well. Now, I've given it a max of 800 tokens, and I've tested this a number of times, and 800 tokens seems to be about right. It doesn't run out of tokens that way. The default of 300 was just not enough to create a really good quality review. So all of the rest of the settings I'm going to pretty much leave as they are. After it's done that, we're now going to store this review into our Airtable. So we're obviously pulling the record ID that we got when we did our first lookup. We're just going to drop the output of the OpenAI completion into here, and obviously you can see that it's under this choices message. There's the content bit there. So this is the one that we want. Choices array message content. Okay. Next, I'm going to use a really cool tool that I found called HTML to Image API. And what this allows you to do is it will go and grab a screenshot from any URL that's passed into it, which is what I want to use for my featured image. So I'm going to pass in the sanitized redirect URL that we picked up from here. I'm going to say, give me a viewport width of 1920 by 1080 px, which is a 16:9 ratio. I'm not going to ask for the full page, because what that would do is it would grab anything below the fold as well, and I just want it to get that front page. And I'm going to give it a delay of 10 seconds, and the reason for that is that I want to make sure that the page is fully loaded up before it takes the screenshot, and 10 seconds is more than enough to do that. And then finally, once it's got that screenshot, we're going to save all of that data into our Airtable. So here's what we're going to save. We're actually going to get the logo file, which we stored from the scrape, and we can actually download it into our Airtable. We're going to give it the file name, the tool name _logo, because otherwise it would put all of the file names as file.png, and I want it to actually be linked to the actual tool name. We're going to store the screenshot image URL also and download that file. And of course, we're going to give it again the file name, the tool name _screenshot. We're going to make the title of our future article to be the tool name space review. And this is going to be used for a couple of different things. And what we're going to do now is we're going to set the upload to WordPress as no, because we haven't uploaded it to WordPress yet. Okay, so that's pretty much all we're going to do for there. Once it's completed that entire chain, it's going to move on to the next part of our router chain. And the reason that we're doing it in this part is that we've updated our records here now, and we actually want to use that updated information in this chain. So what we're going to do is we're now going to get the updated recording. This time what we're going to do is we're going to make sure, again, it's got the same Slack message TS, and this time it's got to be approved, and the scrape column has got to be completed, and the upload to WordPress has got to be no. So all things that are set in this first chain, that's what it's going to be looking for. So it still will only return the one output here. Now, we're going to, just as a double check, I've put a little filter here to make sure that the images actually do exist and that it's been completed. And assuming that happens, we're then going to do our second OpenAI completion. So in this one, we've got, again, a system role, which is, it's a highly skilled content and SEO manager. We've got a user role, which is where the prompt is. We're telling it what we're going to give it, a written review. We're going to give it the name and the post title, along with the actual review that we've created in our last completion, and a keyword. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, please create a meta description for the article that must not exceed 160 characters, and it must contain the provided keyword. Again, I've told it here are a few words that you must not have in your completion, including meta description, because what we don't want it to do is go meta description : and then start doing the meta description. We want it to definitely not do that, because that'll just look really awful. Where I want to make sure it never tries to include any URLs, quotation marks, or special characters. And once again, we're going to reiterate what we actually want from it. No explanatory text, and it must only output the actual meta description up to 160 characters in length, including spaces. And then our second user role is, of course, the product name, article text, article title, and the keyword that we have pulled from this record lookup here. I've given it 400 tokens this time. That's way more than enough. And then we are going to store the return of the completion from here into our Airtable, and we're going to store it as the meta description. We're also going to store the keyword as well, which is going to be the same as the article title. This is going to be just better for SEO when we post it to our WordPress. Okay, so once it's done all of those elements, the next thing it's going to do is it's going to go down this branch here. It's going to get the record again, and this time we're just checking that we've got our right message with the Slack timestamp in it, that approval is approved, scrape is now completed, and upload to WordPress has been set to yes, because what we had in here, which I didn't show you before, is we also have the upload to WordPress single select has now been set to yes as well. Okay, so it returns us that one record. We're going to convert all of that rich text markdown into HTML. Why? Because WordPress doesn't like markdown, it likes HTML. So even though me as a human, I much prefer seeing markdown in my Airtable, we have to set it as HTML to make it all format properly in our WordPress. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a new WordPress post, and we're going to pass all of these variables in. we're going to make the article title that's pulled out of here. We're going to use the HTML. That's going to be coming from this markdown converter here. And then what I've done is I've just had a line break, a horizontal rule, and I've added a little bit more here because I like to have some internal links at the bottom and a link for people to go to other product reviews. We're going to make the type posts, and we're going to make the excerpt the same as the meta description, and we're going to make the publication time now. Now we're going to then set the slug as the article title. That's basically going to take the article, it's going to strip out the white spaces and replace them with dashes, and we're going to set the status to publish immediately. And the reason for that is it's going to return as the actual URL of the post. I want it to be a standard format. There's no parent object ID, but I am going to give it a category of AI tools because maybe I might want to filter them on my WordPress site. I'm also going to add a couple of tags, in this case AI, AI tools and app. I'm obviously going to be the author of it, and I'm not going to make it sticky, but I am going to set the comments and the pings to closed. I'm also going to send a little bit of extra metadata as well, and the reason for this is that I use rank math in my WordPress, and what I want to do is to set the rank math focus keyword key and set it to the value of keyword, and then I want to create a new custom field called SEO description, and that's going to have the value of my meta description in here. Okay, now once it's created that, then I actually want to call the post again because I want to get some more information about it, because it's not automatically going to return me the URL of the post. So I'm going to pass in the post ID that is returned from this module when it's called, and then we are going to store that WordPress ID into our table here. We've got the post ID and the WordPress post URL, which comes from this module, we can now store as the actual clickable link for our story, which has been created. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to get the screenshot image. So we're going to actually call the screenshot image file from our Airtable, and then we have another module here for WordPress. This allows you to set the featured image. I'm going to use the map function instead of the HTTP get a file function. The reason for that is that I want to be able to change the file name. If you don't do this, that's fine, it will work, but it will always make the file name to simply be file.png. And when you upload that to WordPress, as you're about to do, well, if you've done it more than once, you're going to have a lot of files called file.png, and it can just cause a load of problems in your WordPress media gallery. So I'm actually going to give it the name of the tool at the beginning, .png. I'm going to make the title of this image the tool name space homepage. I'm going to give it some alternate text, which is going to be the same as the article title. I'm not going to bother with a caption. I'm going to give it a description, again pulling the dynamic tool name from here, and I'm going to set it as the featured image of the post that we got from here. Okay, once that's done, it will update your WordPress post, and it's going to make a final update of your Airtable record. It's just going to mark it all as completed. Okay, so that's it. Let's actually see this thing running now. So once we click this button here, we're going to see it start to populate through here. Obviously it's a little bit small on this page, but you should be just able to make out what's happening. But you will see what's occurring in here. So let's keep an eye on this, and we'll start to see all of these things populate and change. So we're on the Eternity AC one. So that's the information we've already pulled. We can just pull it up to there, and we can now click the Approve button. So here it goes, it's running all the way up here, it's been approved, Scrape's been approved, it's pulled the original product description, and it's got the redirect URL, so this is from those text parsers. It's now going through its OpenAI completion, which is going to appear in the completed review part here. Once that's done, There it is. So here we have some very nice markdown version text, much bigger than the original summary that we got from the site. And now what we are getting is the logo file, which is popping up here, and we're getting there's the logo and there's the screenshot image, which has been pulled from the HTML to image API. And now it's running through our second and third parts. So what it should have given us now is the meta description, which we now have. And we just make that a little bit bigger. You will also be able to see that we've now got upload to WordPress was done. It's created a post ID. It's even given us the URL which it's pulled, which is clickable. We'll click that in a minute. And finally, it's given us our completion. So let's just have a look at the article as it appears on the website without any formatting or editing whatsoever. Okay, there it is. There's our screenshot. We've got the title, we've got the date. That's all been set already on the website. And there is our absolutely beautiful and brilliant review that we've done. And that's it. How to create limitless review style content without having to get a proper dab on using AI and automation. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give me a like and do consider dropping a comment, which really helps the channel to grow. Now, if you'd like to have this or a similar automation created for your own use, you can buy the entire scenario with full instructions on how to set it up in your organization. Or, if you prefer, I can just do it all for you, and I'll deliver all the content straight to you so you don't need to muck about running your own infrastructure. There's a link tree in the description of this video which will show you how to get in touch for any reason. So that's it for now on our latest AI and automation journey from God's own country of Yorkshire. Ta-ra for now.